Hi, everyone. Welcome to Transformations with Janetta Jane, a space for slowing down, listening deeply, and reconnecting with the wisdom of your body, heart, and soul. We do this so that we can heal, find peace, and step more fully into who we truly are. Today, I have an amazing guest, Ashley Long, who she struggled with health issues for a long time and she's done so much healing work. Anyone who has struggled with body pain needs to be here now. Ashley Long is the founder of Thrive Again Coaching, who brings a deeply lived and compassionate understanding of mind body healing. Ashley's journey includes years of chronic pain, anxiety, food sensitivities, and nervous system overwhelm. Experiences that ultimately led her to the work of Dr. John Sarno and a profound reconnection with her body, emotions, faith, and her sense of self. Through awareness, emotional work, somatic practices, lifestyle shifts, and spiritual grounding, Ashley found her way back to health and wholeness. In this conversation, we explore what healing actually looks like over time, not as a quick fix, but as a return to safety, truth, and trust within. So for now, here is Ashley. So thank you, Ashley, for joining me. You came in as I was doing our intro.
Yeah, thank
Fantastic.
you.
Wonderful. So good to have you here. I'm really grateful that you were able to join us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a beautiful painting on your right
Oh,
there.
thank you. It's one of my favorites.
Oh my
Thank you.
goodness. Yes, it's gorgeous. Um, well, I'd love you to introduce yourself to our listeners. There is so many people that I know personally that struggle with body pain, and many of my clients, as a kinesiologist, I worked with people for decades that never got over their body pain. And it's really only been in the last few years since I discovered Dr. Sarno and started listening to your interviews and other people's work that I've realized, wow, this may be the big picture here. So I'd love to hear you share a little more.
Yeah, for sure. It is amazing. It's amazing how the mind-body connection is so powerful. It is something that, I only came across 5 years ago. So I'm still, learning a lot day by day. There's a lot out there to learn, a lot of
Yeah.
books to read, and I encourage everybody to just soak it in, right? Because we have a lot of information now on the internet, more so than we used to, and it's only growing. So
Right,
that's a good thing.
right.
Yeah. So yeah, since I was really young, I experienced a lot of different symptoms. Are there any specific ones you would like me to talk about today
Well, I was
to
so
focus?
interested in how you started with stomach aches, if I recollect. If you can just kind of do a brief summary of what started in elementary school and how that
Yeah,
continued, and as stress built in your life, they seem
right.
to get worse, including motherhood and getting married and a
Yeah.
stressful job.
Yes, yes, yes. I didn't want to. Yeah. So yeah, the stomach issues was from a very young age. 4 or 5 is when I started having a lot of stomach issues, and it definitely correlated with feeling a lot of fear, feeling scared, whether it was from school or other kids or home life, whatever it was. And I had a great upbringing, but I did observe some anxiety and fear, in the home over jobs,
Mm,
over money, over the typical things, that parents will feel stressed about. And I was a very sensitive individual. So I really took on a lot of that. So if somebody was feeling anxious or fear, I took it on like it was me because I was very sensitive.
mm,
And so throughout my life, that continued. And throughout my life, the symptoms continued. In high school, it got a little worse because I was very, very rigid and an over perfectionist, trying always very hard on myself. I was the oldest of all my siblings. So yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I think that plays into it, because our brain and our body perceives that as danger if we continually putting pressure and stress on ourselves. And
Mm,
so my junior year of high school is when I started to go to a chiropractor because I would get neck and back pain that really would flare up.
mm,
And it was very difficult to ignore it, but I tried my best to ignore it. I grew up seeing my mom with a lot of back pain, so to me that was just kind of like, oh, a lot of people have back pain, no big deal. And so I would see a chiropractor very often, and it did help. It would give me relief, but it was always temporary. So
mm,
I was grateful for the relief, but I thought to myself, even back as a teenager, I would think to myself, there's got to be more to this. Like, why is it that when I'm overwhelmed and stressed, that my pain gets worse and my whole body would ache?
mm,
And so, yeah, even from a young age, I was kind of thinking there had to be more to it, than, oh, I was just born with a bad. But see, I wasn't born with a bad back. That's the thing, is I never had back pain until the end of my high school years. Um, so let's see. Yeah, I continued going to a chiropractor really my whole life. I saw a chiropractor for about 32 years. Was
wow.
consistently seeing a chiropractor just to get that temporary relief because no one would tell me or, give me any other options or any other ideas of what to do to get relief. And symptoms kept piling up, new symptoms. I always had the back and neck pain, but I called it the laundry list of symptoms because I mean, I had digestion issues. I was diagnosed with IBS-C, food reactions, environmental reactions, a lot of allergies, asthma, severe dry eye, and fibromyalgia. So I think that was most of it. And over time, they would get worse. But then I noticed in college, my college years, they would kind of, go down and they got a little better. Um, and I think that it wasn't a coincidence because during those years, I was having a lot of fun. I
Mm,
was enjoying life. I was with my people that I just enjoyed, being with. I joined a Christian sorority with my sisters, and it was just, a lot of fellowship. So I think it wasn't a coincidence because I was feeling a little more safety. I didn't feel as much pressure. I enjoyed learning.
mm,
And did I still have symptoms? Yes, but they weren't even close to being as unbearable as they used to be. So I thought maybe I was just coming out of all these symptoms. But once I got married and had all the children, right, as we all know, those of us who are mothers, the stress, was just very overwhelming. And that's when symptoms came back full on, very strongly. And that's when life got really hard because more responsibilities, more things to do. Yeah. And as a mom, you feel guilty for not doing things right. And then the guilt piles on with more pressure. And so it was really hard. Yeah. Marriage and motherhood was very challenging. And I just didn't understand why I was getting worse. I felt like, is it just my genes? Is it hereditary? Is this just something that I'm going to have to suffer with the rest of my life? But it was strange that I had all these different problems. It wasn't just one thing.
mm,
So that's why I was like, why is this so inconsistent? Why is it? And so many different things. And deep down, I remember one day I asked my chiropractor, I said, or no, I'm sorry, my chiropractor asked me, he said, you must have been a severe car accident or you must have been in some kind of situation that just, threw your alignment out like this. And I would tell him, no. I wasn't. I've never been in any accident. I've never had any injury. And even those of us who have, our body heals. That's the
mm,
thing, is even if I did have an injury, our body has that innate healing. So it doesn't really matter. But I told him no. And he just couldn't believe it. And he said, well, then I don't understand why you're this bad, this tense, and you have herniated disc and misalignments. And I said, I think it's stress and anxiety. And he just kind of laughed. And I was thinking, how can he think that isn't possible? Because
mm,
I noticed the correlation with the stress and anxiety and the pain and the symptoms.
mhm.
So yeah,
This
yeah.
it's amazing. Your story is amazing, and I'll tap back into some of the things because I've studied your story. I've heard your interviews, and it's really fascinating. I think so many people that struggle with chronic pain, myself included, at times in my life, have the mind body thing. It often starts with an emotional thing and can tap that in, but we don't usually make the correlation. And our society makes a fortune on everybody's illnesses and all these helpers. And, the
Yeah.
doctors are quite happy to do a surgery if they see a herniated or disc. And it's sometimes often with my clients, I found it made it worse. So, Ashley, as you look back now, what do you feel most proud of about the woman who kept going through all of this?
I think the thing I would feel most proud of would be the determination to not give up. Because I know how easy it is to just give up, throw in the towel, and accept that you have a problem. And there were times I was close to accepting it, but I wanted a better life.
Mm,
And I knew that deep down, God wanted a better life for me. What kind of purpose do I have on this earth if I'm just suffering?
mm,
Right? There's not much I can do to help others and to be a light of the Lord if I'm just at home suffering.
mm,
And I thought to myself, I know there's a better purpose for me.
mm,
So I just kept researching and I kept praying, and I had others praying for me. And finally, when I went to church and had the elders pray for me, a few days later is when I came across mind body syndrome, TMS, and neuroplastic symptoms. And I thought, okay, this is the answer. So that was my answer to prayer. And from there is when, like I said, I didn't give up. I kept going. I kept reading. I kept trying. I kept learning, kept implementing, trial and
beautiful.
error. Yeah. So,
Beautiful, beautiful.
yeah.
Well, I want to chat a little bit about your early symptoms and the nervous system imprinting, because I think a lot of people don't really understand that aspect of it. So when you look back at that nervous little girl that you were, what do you understand now about how this pain might have been trying to keep her body safe?
Yeah. I think it was, emotions are a big thing. And I think that the ego and our subconscious is trying to hide things that it views as not safe, that it views as a perceived danger. And I know for me, emotions was one of those things. So anytime I felt anger coming up, or anytime I felt sadness coming up, my subconscious or the ego, whatever you want to call it, was trying to push it back down because, it's not acceptable to show anger. Some people will tell us, we're not supposed to show emotions in society.
Mhm.
I didn't grow up showing a lot of emotions. My family wasn't really that type that showed a lot of emotions and talked about emotions. So I think over the years, suppressing the emotions is one way the nervous system was, trying to protect me because it thought it was something dangerous. And then that's the whole idea is our body is doing what it's supposed to do. Our nervous system is trying to protect us, but unfortunately, we're not telling our nervous system that we're safe, right? And so I didn't unwillingly, I kept telling my nervous system and my brain that there was danger, like some
Mm,
sort of danger. So I was stuck, right? I was stuck in that fight, flight, and freeze,
mm, mm.
sympathetic state. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the interesting things I've found through Dr. Gabor Mate's work is
Yeah.
how he speaks a lot about coming into the world with two needs. One is to be authentic and real. A baby lets you know when they're hungry or what they need. They're very loud and clear about it when they come in. The second need is to be loved. But often that first need to be authentic gets squelched. So
Yeah.
already as an infant, we're starting to learn what's okay and what's not okay. And so we give up being true to our own selves often and to our own feelings and suppress them to be able to stay loved because we have to be
That's right.
loved. That's the main thing. So it's
Yeah, we want to be accepted. Yeah.
exactly. You describe absorbing anxiety and fear in a family where emotions weren't expressed. How do you see that shaping your nervous system early on?
I think it was kind of, I was rewiring myself to that baseline, right? So if I saw something that I perceived as danger, then the nervous system was activated. And over the years, that was kind of my normal. And a lot of us don't realize that we're living from a baseline, from a place that's not normal, right? Because to us, it is our normal because of the way we were raised or the behaviors that we observed from a very young age. And like you said, even from birth, we're told to do this, not to do that. And we, from our own experiences, determine what is fearful. And two people can have the same experience and someone can have it be traumatic and someone may have it not be traumatic,
Hmm.
right? Which is fascinating because
Hmm.
it's all about how we interpret the experience. And
Hmm.
so, unfortunately for me, I interpreted a lot of experiences as very scary, whereas somebody else may have had that experience and it may not have been that way for them. And so
Absolutely.
that's why it's so important to learn about the nervous system and to learn about how important it is to show the brain and the body safety over and over and over, and how to express emotions when you're going through something difficult. Because the more we hold in the emotions while we're experiencing a difficult or stressful situation, the more our body is not processing in a healthy, regulated way.
Mm. So, what
So.
is a way that a listener could tell their nervous system they were safe if they were starting to feel something uncomfortable and they maybe couldn't quite get the words out to say, what you just said made me feel uncomfortable? What are some of the things that you might do to help your nervous system feel safe?
Yeah, well, my favorite thing that is the easiest and quickest is breath work. Um,
Beautiful.
and putting a smile on. That's one thing I learned recently. It's like something so simple as a smile. Even if we don't feel like smiling, that tells the brain that you're okay. Because who's going to smile if they're being attacked by
Mm.
a lion, right?
Right.
And so, so forcing yourself to smile if you can, depending on what the situation is. But breath work you can do no matter where you are because you can breathe through your nose and then hold as long as you can and then exhale through your nose. And the longer the exhale, the better it is. And that's something you can do in front of people if you breathe through your nose. And so I tell my clients, just do some deep breathing, do some breath work because that's telling the nervous system, that's helping it realize that you're safe because if you were in danger, you wouldn't be breathing slowly. That's sending that signal, right? So
Mm.
anything that you can do to send that signal to the body and the brain, I like to combine both the bottom up and top down approach because if you're showing, I mean, you could even do self hugs, you could squeeze yourself, anything that's telling the body that it feels good and is safe. And then telling your brain, I would have mantras and like different statements going through my mind. I'm okay. There's no danger. And I help myself realize there's a difference between feeling uncomfortable and true danger. Because
Mm.
as I was, from a young age, a lot of uncomfortable situations to me was real danger. So I had to train my brain and my mind that, oh, this is just unpleasant. This is
Mm.
just uncomfortable, but there's not a true danger right now.
Right, right. I'm going to take a moment here because this has just reminded me that usually I do a little grounding exercise before I start a little podcast. And when I came on after doing the introduction, which I didn't even know you were on the screen, and then I saw you, it was like, oh, so I forgot to do that. And now, because we started talking about this mind-body connection, there could be some of our listeners who are thinking, oh, that's not me, are starting to feel a little uncomfortable because they may have been struggling with pain for their entire lives. And they're feeling like, oh my gosh, are they saying that it's all been in my head? Whatever. And we'll talk about that too, and what scans have showed up on, that pain is real. It shows up on brain scans, just like true pain. So to help people know, no, your pain is real. This is a way of going about getting rid of pain that is about just understanding the mind body connection. So anybody who's listening, I'm just going to take a moment just to have you guys close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and then exhale really slow out the mouth, perhaps, but just really slow down that exhale. And one more deep breath in. This time, hold it. And then as you exhale, maybe do it through slightly pursed lips or even like you're whistling, just really slow. Slow down the exhale. Perhaps feel your feet. Feel where you're sitting in the seat. And then come back to where we are at this place and time. Give thanks for your life that you're able to be here right now, something we sometimes forget about doing. just that blessing of gratitude that you might be learning something new that can help you get rid of this pain that you've struggled with for so long. And then I'll just slowly bring us back to Ashley, and this interview on mind body pain and how we can get rid of chronic pain. So thank you, Ashley. Yeah, I'll go on to one more question in this area, and that's at what point did you realize that your symptoms weren't random, but responsive to situations, to environment, to stress?
I think that I really started seeing that correlation even in high school because I noticed that after I went through a really hard discussion or had a really hard test, I would always have more pain.
Mm,
So I knew that there was something correlated with the anxiety and the stress and the symptoms, even from high school. But doctors and chiropractors didn't tell me that. So, and they
mm.
didn't really teach that. So I kind of dismissed it, even though deep down I saw it. Yeah.
Oh boy. You speak clearly about the ego as protective. When did you
Mm.
first realize that perfectionism and people pleasing were actually survival strategies?
I didn't realize that till I started doing a lot of the psychology aspect, with the mind body syndrome. And I started reading the books. So really in probably my early 30s is when I started to learn about all of that part of it. And it made sense that it was really just a protective mechanism because of what the ego thought was
Mm,
dangerous, what it learned.
mm.
Yeah.
Can you describe what the ego is? So for our listeners that aren't quite sure?
So I'll do my best, but from my understanding, the ego is basically how we perceive ourselves based on what society taught us. So as we grow up, we learn based on what maybe your parents have taught you or friends, teachers, anyone in society will give you a perspective on how to act and how to feel. And so over time, our ego, wants to protect us and it
Mm.
wants us to be acceptable, right, in our society. So it's how we perceive ourselves in that way. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. I love that.
Maybe you can add to that.
Well, I
Um,
probably could. There's so many definitions
yeah.
out there, and I feel that you can take a psychological viewpoint. There's different spiritual viewpoints, but it's
Mm.
it's the way that we come to know of ourselves on the outside. And there is, yeah, there's. I think you did a beautiful job of that. I think I'll just leave it with that for now.
Okay.
Um, how did the fear of authority live in your body? What were the earliest cues?
Like authority figures?
Yeah, authority
Yeah.
figures, your parents. Uh,
Yes. I think that I saw that, yeah, from a young age. Like if my parents were having a hard time at work, if they would like express some fear with bosses, and a lot of people do that sort of thing, they feel a lot of pressure from their job and from their boss. And unfortunately, there aren't, there's some leaders out there who aren't really that good, and there's some wonderful people out there. So if you have an experience with an authority figure who isn't a very kind one, that can build a lot of fear.
mm,
And over the years, unfortunately, I was a teacher for many years,
mm,
and I did have some principals that were not very kind,
mm,
and that just kind of it continued to feed that fear of authority figures when we don't have to have that fear because when we have confidence in ourselves and we have good communication skills, it's very different. At least it was for me.
mhm,
So when I was living from a place of confidence and peace versus really low self-esteem and fear, it was very different. experience. But
Mhm.
it takes time. I mean, it took me years to rewire some of these beliefs that the ego would build up because the ego is strong and it's very difficult to try to, it's a lot of subconscious work. So over time, it finally accepts it, but it's not something you can do overnight, as I'm
No,
sure.
that is one of the
Um,
things I love the most about your story. You touch on so many different physical symptoms, of which I've had a number as well. And
mhm.
I actually started learning about Dr. Sarno years ago and was just not, I thought, no, I dropped it, not me, that's not my pain, you know. But over time, I started seeing I just had a really stressful incident. One of the areas where I have had pain recurs in my hands. And it was during a drive where I didn't use my hands. And by the time I got home after this painful incident and on the drive on the way home, when I was feeling really upset, I got home and my hands really hurt. And I was going, I haven't used them. What is that about? And that was the first real inkling for me into, oh man, I think that is me too, you know? So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. You spoke of your body flushing or tightening in response to criticism. What did that mean to you at the time?
I mean, really, all of it meant danger, right? Like all of that to me was a perceived danger. I thought that if somebody criticized what I did wrong, that meant that I was in trouble. I remember that going through my head a lot, like, oh, you're in trouble now. And so one practice I did that I think is very helpful is I came to realize what my core fear was because we have all these, fears, different layers of fear. And if you, there's a worksheet I have, and it's really helpful because if you keep digging, it all comes down to one core fear. And for me, it was being helpless and alone, right? For some
Mm,
people, it's death. For some people, it's different for everybody. But mine was being helpless and completely alone.
mm,
So it was kind of helpful to see that my subconscious, was experiencing that core fear. And so when someone would, criticize or do something that I viewed as danger,
mm,
I kind of had it was more of like the awareness piece of knowing like why that was triggering for me.
mm,
And so I had to do a lot of like brain rewiring and work on how ultimately that's not truth. All these things that we fear are not reality and it's not truth.
mhm,
So hopefully that
mhm,
was helpful.
mhm. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. What do you feel it cost you emotionally to live that tight, that reactive to life?
It was very difficult because, when you're experiencing life really tight and you have a lot of pain, I mean, it affects everything. It affects how you do as your job. I felt like I wasn't doing a good job as a teacher. It affects how you are in relationships. I felt like I was not a very good wife because I was just always a mess.
Mm,
Always in that victim mentality, always wanting care and help, and felt like I couldn't do anything, on my own. So it affected relationships. It affected how I was as a mother. A
mm,
lot of guilt because my kids would observe a lot of that fear. My kids would observe the pain and all the symptoms, and they thought something was wrong with their mom when really nothing wasn't.
yeah,
So yeah, it affects so much.
of
It does.
course. So painful,
Yeah.
especially when children are involved, because that's the most important thing in your life when you're a mom. Oh
Yeah, and
my
they pick it
gosh.
up too. They pick up on the fear and they'll
Oh, of
sometimes,
course.
like my own kids, they'll start having the symptoms. And when you notice that your kids are starting to have the same symptoms you're having, there's no coincidence to that.
No,
Like there's a
no,
reason. Yeah. I mean, there is,
absolutely.
it's just, yeah.
Absolutely. And I've even found in my own life as kind of an empath and whatnot, when somebody comes in, I'll sometimes feel their stress in the same place. Like somebody will come in and I'll go, what's happened? Because all of a sudden my gut will tighten up as they approach me, and I know that they're going through something. Yeah, I'm going to touch on the rock bottom and the collapse because you describe a period where you felt like you were failing at everything, marriage, motherhood, work. What was happening for you internally at that time?
I feel like I was kind of being cut off from reality. We get to a place where we're so overwhelmed. Our nervous system is so strongly in that fight, flight, and freeze. Your
Mm,
body thinks that there's just constant danger. It's like you're in a war zone. And
mm,
I feel like I was kind of cut off from reality. And I think it was really hard to connect, whether that was connecting with people, connecting with joy, connecting with God. It was really, really hard to have any kind of intimacy and connection since I
mm,
was so strongly in that survival mode.
mm.
Um, yeah.
So you were really feeling the pain and almost the isolation from others and maybe even from God, a part of yourself. And what about the pain in your body? Was it starting to react more as this all started to collapse and come in, more symptoms?
Yes, it did. There was a time when I was diagnosed with a herniated disc and I couldn't even lay in bed. So then I didn't really get sleep. And we all know how that works if you don't get sleep. So that was really
Absolutely.
hard. Yeah. And when, that disconnect is there, you just want to escape. And so I was, thinking about just doing whatever I could to escape. So you're not really thinking rationally. And I was thinking, well, maybe I should just leave my family, which is heartbreaking. But
Mm,
in that moment, when you're not thinking clearly and rationally, that's when people do things that aren't rational, right? And so I almost thought about running away because it's in my mind, running away and being alone would give me some kind of relief, right? So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Wow, I totally understand. And how sad that is because the very people that we need the most, when we go through these really hard times, we're thinking of them, but our thinking is warped, because we're thinking, well, maybe if I leave, everyone will be happier. And yet, of
Mhm.
course, that would be awful. But it's just where we go because it can become so devastating. At one point, you were told this is fibromyalgia, this is structural. What did your body know that your mind didn't yet have language for at that time?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Mm,
Um, I think that my body felt like it was broken. If it could speak, it would say it was broken. And there's a lot of fear within, a lot of pressure. Um, but it also has that innate well-being. So if I
mm.
was able to have the mind peace
Yeah.
and give my body, that safety and calmness, then I think the body would have been able to heal, with that innate well-being. Because
Mhm,
everybody's body has that. I believe
mhm,
God designed everybody to be able, to heal from different chronic symptoms.
mhm. Absolutely. Um, what finally broke the loop of self-doubt? When you went through a period where all of a sudden things started clicking and you realized this was perhaps more than just the physical pain, that there was something a lot more, that perhaps your mind was involved. What really broke that loop of self-doubt that was kind of holding you back and keeping you kind of stuck in the pain rather than seeing past that? Was there a turning point that was, uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that what comes to mind is when I was, educating myself about all of it. Um, I started realizing that symptoms could come just by my thoughts alone. So
Mm,
even if I wasn't experiencing something physically, if I would just sit here and start imagining some kind of stressful situation as if it was reality, symptoms would come.
mm,
And that's when, I realized, okay, this is mind body, this is TMS, this is neuroplastic because I'm not actually doing anything. And I can bring on symptoms, all kinds of different symptoms by just the mind alone.
beautiful. Can
So
you
that was a big turning point for me.
can you define neuroplasticity and how it, because a lot of people won't understand that, and how it works with mind-body symptoms?
Yeah, so our brains are neuroplastic, which means that they can change, right? Our thoughts can change. And so, you can have symptoms that are neuroplastic because they're stemming from the brain alone. So if the brain perceives danger and the body thinks it's under some kind of attack, I'm trying to give an example here, like I don't know if this is a really good example, but like if we, catch a virus or we have the flu or something, it perceives some kind of, invader. And so that's why we have the symptoms. That's why you might start having the cough and, the congestion. It's trying to push away the danger or what it sees as it like that invader. So our body's doing the right thing. But when it's neuroplastic, it's something that we're seeing with our brain and our mind as danger, but it's not really a true danger. We're not truly how do you say it, under a threat. So it's still producing symptoms, but there's really no need for the symptoms. So we have to tell the brain and our nervous system that there's no need. There's no need for that. There's no, invader. Someone who has like chronic Lyme disease or something like that, they might continually have these symptoms like chronic fatigue because the brain, the body think that there's still some kind of, danger and invasion happening within when really there's not. So we have to kind of rewire those neuroplastic neurocircuits to truly believe. And again, this is a lot of subconscious stuff. It takes a lot of time. But eventually it will believe that you are safe if you do it, enough. And that's when the symptoms turn off. And like you mentioned before, the symptoms are real, right? Like these symptoms are not just in our head. The
Mm,
pain is real. There really is a pain signal. The brain is sending a pain signal, just like as if we were, touching a hot stove.
mm.
It's all real. It's just not for the right reason. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, it sure does. And when you think about the vulnerability of children, how precious they are, how much they need our lives, especially when they're little. If they get an emotional symptom and it's not allowed in the family system, that is not okay, that's too much, whatever, they will push it away. But over time, so the nervous system becomes primed for okay, emotional pain, boom, get rid of it, boom, get rid of it. And over time, the body gets overloaded and then it starts showing up in symptoms here, there, and everywhere. And yet it's all unconscious or subconscious at least. So we have no idea that's happening. So that's really interesting. When you was there grief in realizing how long you'd lived in fear and in a way that wasn't serving you?
Yes, absolutely. It's sad when we look back and we think, oh, all these years in my life, what a waste, or I could have been a better mother, a better wife, I could have done better at my job. So I did experience a period of like, oh my goodness, I wish I would have learned this earlier. I wish I would have implemented this earlier in my life so I could have, had something different. But I tell everyone that I speak to, it's like I'm grateful that I know it now, because it's never too late. And it's like some people are like, oh gosh, it took you 3 years. And I think, well, to me, that's nothing. It's like compared to my entire life, 3 years is nothing. And I would never change it because I learned a lot and it made me a stronger person. When you do this mind body work and when you truly focus on the root cause and what's going on subconsciously, it doesn't just stop the symptoms. It really does make you stronger, it really does. And so I learned a lot from it. And a lot of it is reshaping, not just fears, but some perhaps personality traits that can like perfectionism. And I kind of taught myself, how to not perceive certain things as danger. And so naturally, some of these personality traits shifted a little bit for me, which was nice because I'm more confident. I don't feel like I have to be so much of a people pleaser. And so even though there was grief, it was something that I think God really showed me how to make it such a great learning experience and how to become stronger and to teach others, right? And to encourage others. And that's my goal is to help whoever I can. Because unfortunately, right now in our medical system, it's not really being taught. And my prayer is one day it will be. But right now, it's just not. You just get prescribed some kind of pill and
It seems to be that money directs our world and this whole field of healing so much rather than these simple truths. Even, over 100 years ago now, when they brought in the Flexner report and took away all the natural vitamins and natural healing that had worked for thousands of years, and it had to be something patented, something synthetic, and then doctors moved into just prescribing things for symptoms where pharma could make a whole lot of money off of them. And we got sidetracked. And now they're wanting to get rid of vitamins, in Canada here. They would love to put those under
Mhm.
pharmaceutical branches and be able to patent those as well. So it's now, you spoke about a time when your church, the elders in your church prayed for you and for your pain, and then something happened where you encountered mind-body education. What was it about that time that made it click? And you went, wow, maybe this is me?
Yeah, it was confusing because over the years I prayed, um, but you know what? I think I was praying the wrong way because I was praying out of frustration and out of desperation,
Mm,
no hope. It was kind of like I was praying for God just to, just to fix me. And He can. I do believe God has the power to do these kind of miracles, and they have happened before. But I feel like God wanted me to learn something through this.
mm,
And I do believe that God designed our bodies, like we talked about, to have that innate healing. So we all have, within us the ability to do this. And
mhm,
I'm so grateful that God designed our bodies this way to be able to heal. So yeah, after that prayer at my church, it was only a couple days later that I came across, I can't remember who it was, but on Facebook, I saw a post about they called it limbic system impairment and brain rewiring. And I said,
mhm.
oh, this is interesting. I never heard of this before. And I did more digging. And then that's when I came across TMS with Dr. Sarno, mind body syndrome. And then I came across Dr. Howard Schubiner, another great practitioner out there in the mind body community. And
Oh.
I just flooded my brain with as many books and podcasts and articles that I could possibly read because I honestly it was really fast. It was almost instant that it just resonated with me. I was like this because like I mentioned before, I started noticing the correlations from high school. And so when
Yeah.
I learned about the nervous system and how we perceive certain things as danger and how that affects, how our bodies react, I thought, oh gosh, this is totally what's going on with me. I know for some people it takes a little bit longer because they maybe have been led astray, or maybe they're not the self-awareness piece maybe isn't there as strong.
Mm,
But I feel like over the years and so many chiropractor visits, I just knew there was a correlation.
mm.
And so when I saw the science behind it, that's when I was like, okay, I have, the intuition of all these correlations. Now I have the scientific part of it. Put the two together. I'm all in. And so,
Beautiful, beautiful.
yeah.
What was the first sign in your body that safety was returning? Like, oh,
Ooh, I like
maybe
that
this is it.
question.
Mm,
Hmm. I would like to say it was when I was okay despite symptoms. So when I was having symptoms, but I was still able to find joy and I could still live my life despite the symptom being there, and not having to control me or bother me, that would be. But to think of like a very specific, that's something I would love to ponder on. Like when was that moment that I truly, that the body truly felt that? Yeah, I'll have to think on that because I'm not sure. I've never been asked that question before, but it's an excellent one.
it's interesting
Yeah.
'cause I think for me, I'd known about Dr. Sarno's work for years and looked at it in my own life, but it wasn't until that hand thing where I was realized there's absolutely nothing that could have affected my hands. Why did my hands flare up so bad? oh my gosh, this is it. Thank you, God, or whatever. I just got realizing, uh-oh. And then it took me deeper into that. And that's when I went on the wild goose chase to find people like you. So this is wonderful. So
Yeah, I think that, like I said, like what that just reminded me. Yeah, I think it's when I would be sitting down and having the thoughts, and then the symptoms coming. It's like I'm not even doing anything, but just the thought of the trigger, like just the thought of eating the food, or just the thought of,
ah,
going to the mall and shopping for hours. Just the thought alone was bringing up the physical symptoms.
yeah.
So I think that was, yeah,
It's
a big key.
amazing. It's amazing. So I thought we'll go move into conditioning food and fear loops next. You described learning that fear, not food, was the trigger. How did you begin to untangle those associations?
That was a long journey, and I think everybody's different. And for me, that was one of the hardest ones,
Mm,
was the food, because I love
mm.
food. So
Yeah.
when it's something you love, like I've had a client who was a runner, they loved running. And so having back pain, right? Like that's going to be really hard because their true desire and love for life the symptom is interfering with it. So for me, food was like one of my like joys in life. And so it was really hard to rewire that fear over food. But I stuck with it, and I met myself where I was at.
Mm,
So I didn't try to rush it. I didn't force myself, oh, I know this is my body, so I'm just going to eat whatever I want. Because just knowing that it's something doesn't mean the subconscious is going to buy into it, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
I did try that, I think, and it didn't work very well. I said, oh, and for some people it does. Everybody's different. So I want to point that out. But for me, if I really pushed myself hard, um, it didn't, that wasn't the right approach. I really needed to meet myself where I was at. And
Mm,
so with the food, I really had to reintroduce foods very slowly and with a lot of safety, reminding myself that I'm safe, there's no danger. And I think doing a lot of the mind body practices like the breath work, yoga, going out in nature, all the things was helping my body, right? Like balance, helping
mm,
my digestion go back into a regular state, that rest and digest.
mm,
Um, and the tension, I could just feel the tension in in my gut. The
mm,
tension was slowly releasing,
mm,
so naturally, it was easier to eat more foods because I was pairing up a lot of different mind body modalities and practices with it. But I would do a lot of evidence journaling. So
mm,
if I ate a food and it went great, like if I had pizza one night, and and it always happened more so than not when I was with friends, right? When I was having a good time, when I felt safe, when I felt joy, and I would eat something at a restaurant, and I thought to myself, this is interesting. I'm not having a huge reaction like I normally do. But that's probably because, I'm feeling good and I'm feeling safe and happy. But I had an evidence journal, so I would always write down when something went well, what I was doing, and how I was
mm.
feeling to try to remind my subconscious, like, oh, I can have pizza. This isn't some crazy allergy like I thought it was, because last night I had it and my symptoms weren't there, or they were very, very minimal.
Mhm.
So it was reassuring the brain, of that evidence that, oh, this isn't necessarily consistent all the time.
That's beautiful. What helped you trust your body again after so much avoidance? Just to really trust. The evidence journal you spoke of, I love that. I
Mhm.
find journaling just an excellent technique. Like Nicole Sachs is, I've been quite inspired by her and her journal speak.
Mhm.
And just dropping F-bombs or whatever you need to when you're triggered to just get rid of it and purge it. Um,
Mhm.
because it's almost like we're holding our body like a safe little inner child. Um,
Mhm.
but for you, was there something that helped you to trust your body again after so much avoidance?
I'll have to think about that. What comes to mind is the gradual exposure was helpful. So doing things, with baby steps, gradually exposing myself to what normally triggered me. And, you know, uh, I think like through food, through getting out, building confidence, because we get stuck in that victim mentality so strongly, and we
Oh,
we view ourselves
absolutely.
as, yeah, we view ourselves as so weak. And so I think gradually just exposing myself to hard situations, to things that usually trigger me, new foods. That was really helpful to teach my body, and for me to trust my body. But I feel like if I could think about it, I'd have a better answer for that. But yeah, the gradual exposure I think was helpful.
I love that. One of the things I love the most about your story, Ashley, is how you speak about it taking time. Like it wasn't instantaneous and you kept working on it. That brings so much hope for people, myself included, that have had chronic pain and just trust that this could work for you too if you just hang in there. One of the symptoms you spoke about in reference to food sensitivities was like a histamine flare. Oh my gosh, I have had that so bad, itchy everywhere, itchy, like just going crazy. And the foods that are the healthiest and that I love the most, my kefir, my
Yeah.
sauerkraut, my old cheese, all these things. Really hard, really, really hard. That was one of mine. And when you spoke about your histamine flares, I just went, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
So
and it's so real. I mean,
so real.
it feels, I mean, because it is a real symptom, but it's
Yeah,
like feel like it's a real condition that you can never get out of because it just it's all over your body,
all
It's just
over,
like
all over.
how could I ever overcome something like this when it's just so apparent and everybody can see it right out on the spotlight in the open. And it's hard. I
Absolutely.
really wanted to hide my symptoms. That was something that created more fear is, oh, I have to always, hide if I'm getting, the rashes and the redness and the irritation. And that's hard to be okay, to learn to be okay with it because you know it's not going to happen and you know it's going to pass. Always teaching, yourself, this is going to pass. This is not going to be who I am every second, every day, the rest of my life. You know.
That is really important. It takes me into another question I wanted to ask you about when flare-ups happen, if a flare-up starts to happen again, how do you now go into it without, oh my gosh, overreacting and just going right back into the fear and then that whole fear loop?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I have a lot of clients ask me, about symptoms. And when someone hears, oh, you still get a symptom, oh, then you're not cured. And it's like, no, 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 no. Like, it's not chronic, right? It's like we're human. As humans, we're always going to have mind body symptoms. When people have to get up in front of a crowd to have a speech, they're going to start to sweat and they're going to start to get butterflies in their stomach. Like, we're all human. So, these not necessarily they're going to ever go away all the time, like you'll never experience any kind of symptom the rest of your life, but the difference is when the symptom does come, I know what's happening and I don't get scared anymore because I know it's just mind body, it's just a TMS type of reaction. I know it somewhere subconsciously there's a perceived danger.
Mm.
And I don't have to stand there and try to figure out what the danger is. Sometimes that's helpful, but I know that there's something that I just don't feel comfortable with, or it's some kind of subconscious belief that I haven't been able to overcome yet, and that's okay. So I just reassure myself that I am safe. I do the breath work, the deep breathing to show my body that I'm okay, to help the nervous system get back into that regulation. And before I know it, like if I have like extreme back pain, a few months ago, I forgot what I was doing, but I did some kind of heavy lifting and I did throw my neck out and I was like, oh, initially I was like, oh gosh, I must have injured myself. And then I thought, you know what? This is probably a mind body thing. And if I do, what I know to do and keep reassuring myself that I'm okay, it'll be gone if it's not an injury. And within 2 days, it was gone. And to me, that's a miracle because in the past, when I would throw my neck out, I would go into like, panic mode, gotta run to the chiropractor, gotta run to that specialist, and you're just feeding the fear. And that's all I would do is constantly feed that fear, which keeps it in that loop, right? Because in the more fear we have, the more the symptoms come. And so I've learned how to break out of that loop really quick. It's like, oh, I know what's going on. I know something is some kind of perceived danger and I'm safe. And I'll do whatever I can to show my body and my brain that I'm okay. And within
Absolutely.
days, yeah, it's gone.
That
Yeah.
nurturing and that self, you're okay, it's okay, it will pass, is so beautiful. And it's so instantaneous for putting us back on slowly but surely.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I wanted to
Yeah.
touch on the medical system and sovereignty. What do you wish that people understood about the difference between support and dependency in healing?
Yeah, it's good to get that support. With really, I was actually thinking about this. I did a little video on this, how if you perceive this support as not like a fix it way, just something to help you feel safe,
Mm,
then it's fine. But
mm,
if you are getting that support, say from a doctor or whatever it is, a medication or a certain diet, because you're in fear and you're trying to fix yourself, then you're just feeding, right?
mm,
That loop,
mm,
and you're going to tell your brain and your body that there really is danger because it knows what, like our subconscious mind knows what we're doing. And if we really are doing something because it's just helping us feel safe and good, and we know it's not something that we need forever, or if it's something that we feel like, oh, we're going to die or we're not going to survive without
mm,
this certain support structure, whether it's, a medication or a certain diet. Like I eat healthy because I like to eat healthy and I know it's good for my body because I get vitamins and nutrients. I don't eat healthy because I'm afraid that I'm going to get symptoms if I don't eat healthy. So
right.
hopefully that makes
Right. Yeah,
some.
that's wonderful. How did stepping away from the constant medical input affect your nervous system when you stopped going as often to doctors and stuff?
Yeah. So I think it ties in with the placebo effect because the more I would
Mhm.
go to the doctors, to the chiropractors, to the specialists, I used to go see an allergist, and I would get the allergy shots, every week. That was just telling myself that something was wrong, right? Something was broken within me, and I needed to fix something, and there was fear. So I was feeding that fear, which creates more symptoms. And so, can you say the question one more time? I just lost my train.
Sure. How did stepping away from the constant medical input affect your nervous system?
Yeah, so when I would step away, and I did it gradually, just like with anything, I did it very gradually. I didn't rip it off like a Band-Aid. I would slowly start to have less appointments and slowly start easing out of the different specialists. And it helped because I wasn't getting that input of that something is broken, that something is wrong with me, because that's the feedback I would typically get.
Mm,
And there are some great medical doctors out there, but for the majority of the doctors that I went to, they were just feeding that belief that I will not be okay, that I will need medication, and that I will need to continue seeing them the rest of my life.
mm,
So yeah, I mean, getting out of that was very helpful because my nervous system wasn't having that input, and that what we call the nocebo effect, because the placebo effect is helping us, but I feel like a lot of the medical doctors unfortunately give us the nocebo effect, like we truly are going to believe that something is harming us and that we're broken. And doctors have that authority figure, right? It goes back to that authority figure, and so we want to believe that whatever they say as truth, but unfortunately it's not. I mean, if a doctor says you're going to die, that's not truth. I mean, we've seen so many stories of people who have some kind of terminal illness and they overcome it.
mm.
So yeah, so nobody has ultimate authority over you, no matter who they are. And getting out of the medical system was very helpful to me because I wasn't being fed that mentality of that something was broken and I needed
Absolutely.
something
And
fix myself.
just as doctors are, just as we're taught that doctors are gods and they know everything and we're kind of bowing down to the medical system, so are they. They're bowing down to their instructors in medical school. They're bowing down to the whole system as well. And the further they get, the more okay they are. But a lot of it is not like self-trust, which is so important in rewiring this, starting to trust ourselves. So for you, what might have been the hardest thing in really learning to trust yourself again, becoming more sovereign in your own healing?
I think letting go of control is a big one.
Oh.
Control was, and it still is. This is still a work in progress. Uh,
Mhm.
control was a false sense of safety for me, right? Trying to control my kids, trying to control my husband, trying to control my job or where I was working, where we lived, you name it. I probably tried to control it. Because to me, I was thinking like that's what will bring me safety. But I've learned that letting go of the control, trusting in God, trusting in our bodies doing what they're designed to do, if we give it the right setup, and safety to do it, it'll all work out. And if something doesn't go my way, it's like, okay, guess what? I'm still okay,
Mm,
right? Like I have to remind myself there's a difference between being uncomfortable and being in true danger. And the
mm.
more that I do that, the more, I realize that I can trust. I can trust more, not only in God, but that I am okay no matter what the outcome might be in different situations.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Let's chat a little bit now about relationships and forgiveness. You speak
Mhm.
beautifully about forgiveness as not being weakness. How did that realization help change your body?
Yeah, to me, forgiving somebody was I kind of view that as a sign of yeah, like a weakness and that I wasn't strong enough. I'm not sure why I thought that way. Maybe it's just from society. But the more that I practiced forgiveness, the more I realized how healing that was. I mean, because that kind of ties in with letting go of the control, right? Um, and so that was very healing for my body because when we have some kind of conflict or strife with somebody else, that builds a lot of tension. And that is telling the brain that there's danger, right? Like that there's some kind of perceived danger because somebody's mad at you or because you haven't resolved something. So the more I notice that I make peace and I do resolve any kind of conflicts if it's possible, the better that the mind and body will feel because it's like that innate goodness, right? That humans have. It's like we just know that that's how God designed us was to forgive. And when we do that, the body can kind of just relax more because that perceived danger isn't there, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Forgiveness is such a big piece because when we're not forgiving, we hold that in our bodies. So, there's going to be a nervous system effect there, especially if we're already manifesting mind-body symptoms. So it's really huge. And
Yeah.
just given everything going on our planet right now, the more we can put out into love and peace, the better off we are all around as people in this world. So what
Absolutely.
shifted sorry, what shifted for you in relationships as your internal alarm softened? How did that affect your relationships as you relaxed a little more?
I think I was able to open up more, right? Because that wall, you put up a wall to protect yourself. We have all these false ways of protecting ourselves. And for me, one of those ways was trying to put up a wall and being vulnerable. That was very scary for me because I didn't really see a lot of that. So being vulnerable to me, that meant danger. So
Mm,
I had to really practice a lot of vulnerability and being open, especially with those closest to us, like our parents, our spouses, our kids.
mm,
Um, yeah, so that was one thing, the forgiveness. How else? I think love in general, it can be difficult to really accept love and give love when you're in that really strong protective mode because your your first priority isn't to do that. Your first priority is try to stay alive and survival because you perceive everything as dangerous.
mm.
So I think for me, being able to connect with people and it was just easier, yeah, to give the love and to be receptive and open to it as well. And to God too, like not just with people, but to God. Because your emotions, are they're not being held back as much. So I think that ties into it as well, right? Because my emotion was more balanced and I felt safe with showing emotions. And
Mm.
that ties in with how we relate to other people too. What kind of emotions, because and the vulnerability and that sort of thing.
Do you recognize something now when protection is trying to take over again in relationships? Or how do you recognize that when it's like, uh-oh, something wants to put up the boundary and not share what's really going on?
Yeah. I do. Sometimes I'll ignore it and sometimes I won't. Sometimes I will remind myself, I'll talk to myself saying, you're okay, you're safe. Even though someone might be upset, maybe you did something wrong, or maybe, this isn't as big of a deal as it may feel like a big deal, but it's really not a big deal.
Mm.
Kind of going back to feeling uncomfortable versus real danger. And let's see. Can you say the question one more time?
Yeah, how do you recognize that protection is trying to take over again? That
Yeah.
self-protection.
Yeah, well, I can feel the tense in my body, right? We can feel our bodies shift. You can feel your heart rate go up. And like I said, I'll just do those affirmations like you're okay, there's no problem, there's no real danger right now. And that really helps. I'll even do some breath work. And if I do mess up and have some kind of issue with relationships, I'm trying to work on going back and doing the forgiveness piece and the reconciliation piece, because then that it's never too late, right? That's one thing I've learned is if you do mess up, we all will, we're all human. It's never too late to go back and establish that reconciliation, and that helps establish that safety again and love.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. There was a time where I felt it was harder to say I'm sorry and to go back. And I've come to learn that it's by far the easiest way because there's always something on my side of the street that can be cleaned up a bit or cleared off. And just by taking responsibility for that often opens the door for the other person to say, hey, I could have been softer or whatever. And that's a beautiful thing. So,
That's a great point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I wanted to talk about faith, meaning, integration. These are things that are really big for myself as well. You talk about faith as something embodied and not forced. How did your relationship with God change as your nervous system calmed?
I think I was able to embody his peace versus what I thought was peace, because there's a difference from trying to get peace from the world and being able to have peace from him. And so I think that was a big piece of for me. And I did a lot of visualizations during my healing process, something I still need to do more of. I miss doing those, but visualizations are really powerful because it was a time to really, like you said, embody different emotions and really think about how much love we can receive from Christ and from God. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
when we're going throughout our day and we're on the go, we don't really take the time to think about these things, right? It's a lot of deep topics. Most people don't talk about it, over a tea and dinner or whatever. So it's good to take the time to really on your own, not just know it like head knowledge, but embody it. Because there's a big difference, and that's something that I came to realize throughout the years is there's a difference between knowing something from the Bible or mind body methods, but actually embodying it, like actually living it out, feeling it, and incorporating it every second, that you're alive. It's not just, oh, I read that, that sounds good, now I'm moving on, right? And letting go of the control, really feeling the love, like in the body, not just thinking, oh, so and so likes me or loves me, that's nice, but actually feeling it. I had to work a lot on the feeling part because I was really shut off to wanting to feel much of anything. And so I think that really helped with embodying a lot of faith, letting go of control, and really feeling love.
I think this is such an important point because there could be some listeners that don't have a strong faith in God. Um, but for people like ourselves that have a strong faith in the supreme and this universal power and source and love and God, we
Mhm.
know that it's also internal, that God works through authenticity, that this force is that natural spring of what is true for us in this moment coming up, including our emotions. And so it's so beautiful for anybody out there who might feel like, oh, but I don't believe in God. Well, it's just tapping into your own internal embodiment. What are you feeling inside? What are your true emotions? What is your authentic wisdom at this time? And because we're so programmed from the time we're young, what does society want? What do our parents want? That we lose touch with who we truly are. and that
Oh, yes.
natural embodiment that is the wellspring of love coming up from within us. That's that connection to God, or that's the connection to ourselves. If you don't like the God word, that some people don't. And but that's a beautiful thing because then you start to realize that force is within us, and then we can develop that closer relationship with ourselves instead of a relationship with what everybody else wants and thinks, and that's who I am, what other people think of me, which is a really sad and lonely way to live. And sadly, what we've been trained in our world to do often, a lot of people, especially if we haven't been raised with faith and the idea that God is within us and will speak to us. So,
Yeah, it is amazing. And one thing that really helped me was getting out in nature. I didn't really get out much
mm,
because I was always afraid of something, whether it was getting sunburned or allergies or whatever, you name it. But once I got out in nature more, it's like it's just amazing what the sunlight can do, what can, this the sound of the wind. It's like you can just pause, right? And really that's a great opportunity to really connect with God and to really, look within yourself because the distractions go away, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there. That really helped me.
yeah, I love that. And I'm glad you threw that out because to me, nature is often where I find God the most. It's just
Hmm.
getting out, listening to the wind, watching a sunset, getting in the
Yeah.
trees, watching the animals in their natural, authentic dance, and realizing, oh, there's a bigger picture, you know? So nature is so big. I'm so glad you brought that up. What
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'll have to leave in about 5 minutes.
Okay, so let's just I think if someone is early in their journey and feels hopeless, what would you want them to know?
I think I would let them know that even though it feels so overwhelming and discouraging,
Mm,
to meet them where they're at, not to, because one thing I did was I tried to rush it because we all want relief and we all want to get out of it as fast as we can. Who wouldn't, right? But always remember to give yourself compassion. You deserve self-compassion as much as anyone else on this earth. Everybody has their worth. And so to really love themselves enough to meet themselves where they are at and to keep reminding themselves that it will get better.
mm,
And to never give up because again, if you wouldn't give up on your child or someone who's very dear to you, why would you give up on yourself? Because you should love yourself just as much as you love other people. And that can be hard for those of us who go through, you know, um, really hard chronic symptoms and pain to even think about that. But that really helped me to learn how to have the self-compassion enough to really treat myself just like I would treat anybody else and not give up because it does get better and it does take time. So to be patient with yourself as
mm.
well.
That's
Yeah. And
wonderful.
to have
So,
the faith, you have to have that faith piece, right? Because faith means that you know that it's coming and you don't doubt. So to actually get to a place where you don't doubt, that
mm,
takes time.
mm,
Yeah, that takes a lot of time.
wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to one final question for closing. How do you live now, day to day, in a body that once felt like an enemy?
Oh, it's wonderful because I can experience joy. And that's
Mm,
something that
mm,
I felt like I wasn't allowed to be joyful because I was so miserable, right? So it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to have joy. I'm not supposed to do anything fun, because I'm in that victim mentality. So I just love being able to have the confidence to get outside and do whatever I want to do. And to know that life is very precious and it's very different than what it used to be. And I don't have to suffer. Like I can choose to have that faith and I can choose to have like a different future if I really want to. And I can work at it. And it might take time, but that's the beauty is it comes in the right. I mean, when it's the right timing, it'll happen. We just have to be patient in the waiting.
oh, that's so beautiful. Ashley, thank you so much. You know,
Well, thank you. This has been great. Your questions have been amazing. This has been a great discussion. It really
oh,
has. So thank you so
I'm so
much. I appreciate
grateful.
it.
You have, of all the people I've heard on the Dr. Sarno's podcasts and different things, your story resonated the most because you spoke about how you kept coming back, trying again. You had a multitude of symptoms. And
Mhm.
now you're helping people to get over their chronic pain. So I will have your website, all your details. I'm on 6 different platforms, and I'll put them all out and send them all to you so you can use them as for your clients and whatnot. So thank you so much for sharing this time with me, and I hope you have a beautiful day.
You too. Thank you. God bless. Thanks.
Okay, God bless you too. Bye.